justice and peace and equality.
Right. Game Changers Magazine, Game Changers Media Network, Voices of the Village podcast, where change starts with conversation. We're back with Mr. Nick Peebles, entrepreneur, banker, businessman. We're dropping some major nuggets here and right here. And before we wrap up, want to talk about how are interest rates changing the scope of corporate America in lending right now? Like with the tariffs that's in place, how are interest rates playing an impact on corporate America, corporate lending, and not just corporate lending, but medium-sized to small business as well?
Yeah, so I would say on the small business side, to keep it relevant, interest rates have been going down. So, we base it off of the prime rate. Prime rate is currently sitting at 7.5, and it's been going down over time. I believe probably about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
It was a lot more expensive to borrow money. I was
yes.
But now I would say interest rates are going down. They are still a little bit high, a little bit elevated from historically what they've been.
Okay.
But it's not too bad.
It's not too bad. So buying homes and
That's a different rate.
Buying buildings.
Buying
what I would say is buying corporate locations.
Okay.
Commercial real estate. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I would say this in terms of the residential. So if we looked at residential mortgages, that's high.
Okay.
Right. So it's a couple different things. So small business loans.
Okay.
That's based off of what we call the prime rate.
Okay.
Mortgage rates is based off of the 10-year treasury note.
Okay.
Right. Those are two different rates. They can be variable. They can be fixed.
Right.
But on the residential side, it's high.
Okay.
And you tie that in with the affordability of housing.
Okay.
Right. I believe like the average home now in America is like $450,000.
Yes.
That's
yes.
high.
That's high.
So $450,000 on top of higher than normal interest rates.
Okay.
Interest rates sitting around around 7% to buy a home right now.
Okay.
And the issue is wages has not caught up with the cost of living.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, no, it definitely hasn't.
Yeah, in terms of that realm, it's high.
It's high. And what effect does this play on corporate America? Because if that's high, I mean, does that slow down, consumer buying, or consumer,
So it depends on the sector,
okay.
right? So you have different sectors within our economy as you know.
Okay.
So I would say what we're seeing though is you have this is a great time for a lot of investors to come in, mainly institutional investors.
Okay.
So when I say institutional investors, think about the Progressive or the Tricons of the world, like these major players within investment real estate.
Okay.
That's probably owned by BlackRock. Right? You familiar with BlackRock?
Yeah, yes, definitely familiar with
Okay. So to where they have the pocketbook to go out and they can buy a home cash.
Well, we see that happening right here in South Atlanta right today.
30%.
Yes.
30% of our homes is owned now by institutional investors.
Okay.
Right? So in terms of the corporate side, it's fine. In terms of borrowing money.
Okay.
In terms of the consumer side, especially residential,
okay,
it's tough.
So what type of risk and regulations are banks putting on on loans, on giving loans and managing credit that's being handled right now on a corporate level as far as a consumer level? Like, what are some of the rules and regulations that are in place, like, that are affecting America today?
So, because I want to answer you accurately.
Okay.
So, in terms of the regulations, that's set by the administration.
Okay.
Right. In terms of the banks, the way the banks adjust for risk is through the what we call the credit box.
Okay.
So they may tighten up the credit box a little bit to where they may not do as risky loans. They look for a higher credit score.
Okay.
They may look for instead of being able to lend to somebody that's making $70,000, depending on the price of the home they're trying to purchase, they may require you to make more money, right? Opposed to maybe a couple of years ago you didn't have to.
Right.
So I would say overall, banks kind of tighten up the credit box because they don't want to make risky loans. They don't want risky loans in the books.
So I guess what you will see in this new consumership is more two people homes now. Like, because it seems to be hard for one person to qualify for to buy a home or to rent a home based on the salary. Like you say, the wages don't even match the
cost of living.
The cost of living.
Yeah. Dual income is absolutely mandatory right now. Right, like that's.
But I'm balling. I'm living my best life.
Yeah, well, to an extent, right? So, unless you're fortunate enough to have a career to where you're making enough money to keep the wife at home and take after the kids and all that. But majority of people aren't living like that.
Right.
Majority of people have to have multiple jobs. But I will also say this though: it's not a bad thing to have multiple incomes coming into a house, and I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay.
One of my clients, they own a very famous jewelry store here in Atlanta.
Okay.
Right? And they all live in one house. And this jewelry store, it's a multi-million-dollar business.
Okay.
And all the family members, regardless of how much they making, they all still live in one house.
Okay.
Right? Because they don't, it's their culture. They don't really believe in having all this debt when they all can be living in one house and continue to grow their wealth.
Okay.
Right? So that's a strategy that they choose to exercise. I believe as black people, I believe we have to maybe adjust our preference, our living preference, to where we can pull from these other cultures and races in terms of, maybe it might be a good idea to live in a big enough home and have multiple people, right? Live in the home, whether it be a brother, a sister, a cousin, somebody that you can coexist with within four walls.
Yeah.
So therefore, you guys can reduce the expenses. Now everyone can save, and now you guys can turn around and grow wealth together.
Man, it's interesting you say that because I see many cultures building compounds, buying large homes. But it seems like in the African American community, everybody gotta have their own.
Yeah.
Everybody gotta have their own. And I'm like, you're one person in a three bed house.
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna do? Sleep in all three rooms?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's crazy because a lot of our wealth is going directly back to the banks.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, if you're one person living in a home, 3-bed home, I think it would be wise that, hey, me and my sister or me and my brother can live together. Me and my mom can live together. Yep. Like I've pitched the fact to my mother over and over. I'm like, hey mom, you're getting older. It's time to let's get a house where we get the mother-in-law suite and we're all on one property paying one tax, But how do we get that ideology, transcribed into our people so they understand the benefit of this, and we'll be able to live fruitful lives, man. Because that's a tough one to cross.
It comes to the messaging.
Okay.
Right? So I believe, again, we have to change our messaging through music, through media, through content.
Okay.
And I believe once we begin to do that, then we'll be able to turn around and be more open-minded to having your mom live with you, right? Maybe have your uncle, your father, because, everybody know that song, "I Want No Scrub." Everybody knows lyrics to that.
Come on, man.
Right? So no guy I know wanted to be that scrub.
Yeah.
Right? So I believe because of that and I'm not just saying that song, I'm just saying just in general.
Right.
Because of the messaging that we've had and because of the aesthetic that's associated with you not being on your own.
Okay.
That's why we turn around, we go out and get the 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom, although we living by ourselves. Or that's why we don't want to have any type of roommate, because we want to signal to the world, right, that I can do this on my own.
Right. And it's funny, man, because housing, mortgages are right now about $2,000, $2,500 for people a month.
On the low end.
Wow.
Yeah. I would say probably on the lower end.
Wow.
And that's somebody who probably bought in when the interest rates were maybe around 3%, 2.8, somewhere around there. I mean, yeah, I mean, today, if you was to, based off of a 7% rate, based off of the average home being around 450,000, you paying a lot more than $2,500. Depending on how much you put down, you paying a lot more.
Depending on how much you put down. And from a global, let's talk about banking from a global perspective as well. From a global perspective, coming back home, bringing it back home. So what's happening right here in America? How are banks dealing with global currency and foreign transactions? When it comes down to, if we want to diversify the market and we want to make sure that we're feeding and interacting with different cultures, what is the banking perspective on that when it comes to supporting global currency and foreign exchange?
So I would say our currency is dependent upon investor confidence.
Okay.
So as America, we make money a multitude of different ways. One of the main ways we make it is through selling our bonds.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
So whenever you look at, again, China is one of the largest bond holders in terms of American bonds. I believe they have about $800 billion worth of American bonds.
Wow.
Right? So it's all about investor confidence. I believe right now investor confidence in terms of America's economy, we're still the number one economy in the world. So I want to say that first. We're still the number one economy in the world. But I believe we have some making up to do. I believe we have to get rectify some of the geopolitical issues.
Okay.
So we can continue to be that powerhouse, not just today, but 10, 20, 30 years down the road.
Now we were talking about but while we were doing the break.
Yeah.
And I know we haven't done the research on it, but we just seen in the trending topics where the Ghana dollar is outperforming the U.S. dollar.
Yeah, the Ghana currency. Yeah, in which again, I'm not sure what period of time. I'm not sure if it's over the last 30 days, year to date, but I find that interesting. But a lot of people don't realize there's a lot going on. There's a lot of opportunity in terms of investing in African countries.
Well, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it with one of my peers. I know a young lady who right now is buying land over in Ghana, and it's like she's a real estate agency over in Ghana, and probably making more money over there in that perspective than she is in America right now. Because like you said, the corporate typhoons are basically, they're bombarding Atlanta.
Yeah, they're in Atlanta, but I believe if you look at some of these big wealth funds and everything like that, private equity, a lot of these companies, they're already investing heavily in Africa. Whether it's the infrastructure, whether it's, to your point, people buying land. Right. It's a lot of opportunity just in African countries right now.
Yes. Now, where do we go from taking all that we discussed today? How do we move forward so that this third and fourth quarter that we're looking at, going into, because we know Christmas time is coming, holidays is coming, and those are some of the times when people commit the worst crimes, suicide happens, people get discouraged because, man, I used to take my family here for Christmas, or I used to do this for Thanksgiving, but now because of the way money and the way, the currency is maybe not flowing right now, it's preventing those things. What do we look to bring hope to the third and fourth quarter? How can we change the game and change that narrative?
Well, I would say to hedge against any type of risk, the main thing that we have to do is just continue to educate ourselves. So continue to read, different articles, whether it's Wall Street Journal, whether it's Barron's. So you want to be educated first. Right. I believe the biggest disservice that anyone can do is not be educated. So it's one thing to read headlines.
Okay.
And watch clips. It's another thing to do your own research.
To do your own research, man.
Exactly. And I'm talking, even if it's only 30 minutes a day, but take time out to read and know what's going on around.
That's right.
The country and the world.
That's right.
Right. In terms of going into the third and fourth quarter, I believe the biggest thing is just to try to save as much capital as possible, to have as much cash on hand as possible. But also continue to developing yourself. Right. Continue to invest in yourself.
Right.
Excuse me. And I believe that's the biggest investment anyone can make.
Yes.
Because whether we're going through an economic downturn, a retrenchment, whether we're going through a great period in terms of a business, we have to continue to invest in ourselves.
We definitely have to do that.
So that's the biggest thing, brother. So continue to read, continue to invest in yourself.
Man, we want to thank you for taking the time out, sharing the knowledge, in finance today. Look forward to definitely bringing you back, talking more as our audience engages on some of the things that are, they're concerned about. Moving into the third and fourth quarter of the season, how money is going to play out, what's the expectation of small business owners, what's the expectation of corporate business owners. Also, we want to give a huge shout out to Game Changers Magazine. Game Changers Magazine 2025 Summer Edition featuring Victoria Maylon, Miss Locust Grove, Miss Junior National, Miss Junior Georgia. She also just actually landed the lead role in the stage play Dorothy on The Wizard of Oz. She's traveling nationally. She's doing big things. You guys make sure you go to the website and get your digital or print subscription of this publication. And we thank you for your support. Want to thank you for coming on the show.
Appreciate you, bro.
Anything else you would like to share with our audience before you go?
No, I just want to say, man, you're doing a phenomenal thing, man, for the community.
We appreciate it, man.
I'm going to continue to follow and be a fan, brother. And anytime you want me to come on, you got it.
Most definitely, man. Thank you guys for tuning in. Game Changers Magazine, Game Changers Media Network, Voices of the Village podcast, where change starts the conversation.
And equality. Now the world they will see.